This voice belongs to Celia Kallenbach. I work here at World Education as Vice President, overseeing our programs in the U.S., including our EdTech Center that is the host of today's webinar. And with me is Jen Benek, Director of Digital Learning and Research at World Education. And
Hello.
Jen, do you want to say just a word about your role?
Yes, hello everyone. I am very excited about this work because one of my tasks and my projects at World Ed is to direct the IDEAL Consortium, which is a group of adult ed leaders from across the U.S. who convene virtually and in person to support quality to system blended learning. You'll learn later about how there are a number of ideal states represented in this work, and so this is a natural extension of the work that I do. So I hope to bring the learning from that group to you and the learnings from this group to them.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. So on this webinar, we have quite a large group from across the country as far as Texas and as close to home as Boston, which is, of course, the headquarters of World Education. And some of you I know have already joined Team World Ed, and others are perhaps curious, what is this all about? So by the end of this webinar, you will know what Team World Ed is about, what the Adult Literacy XPrize Communities Competition is about, and what could be in it for you, your program, your state, the adults you work with. This webinar will, of course, be recorded, and if you're a registered participant, you will receive the recording along with an evaluation that I already want to ask you to remember to respond to. And you can see our agenda there. We're going to talk about everything related to this XPrize Communities Competition. But first, I'm going to turn this over to Mike Prentice-Glasgow from iTech Center, who is supporting this webinar and will tell you just a little bit about the WebEx platform in case you are not familiar with it. Mike?
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Celia, for that introduction. Hey, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. What you can probably see on your on the presentation now is an example of what the WebEx client looks like, and we just wanted to give you a heads up that we definitely want to encourage as much participation as possible. So if you have questions, comments, or reflections that you would like the panelists to know or respond to, please feel free to add them in the chat box, which you can see on the bottom right where it says enter chat message here. And you can address them to all participants so that everyone, including the attendees and the panelists, can see the thoughts that you are sharing. Also, we will be having some polling happening that I will open up right after I finish this introduction. And we want to engage you on a few different topics, so look out for that on the right panel, as well as there will be some multimedia elements of this presentation. So just a quick warning for anyone on headphones, make sure your volume panel is at the ready, as it may be abrupt and loud. But aside from that, if you have any questions or problems hearing, or your internet connection gives you trouble throughout the presentation, feel free to message me privately. If you click where it says to all participants currently on the example, you can click and message me, Michael Prentice-Glasgow, privately, and we can try to resolve any technical problems you might have. But so going forward, we're going to put up a poll right now so that people can weigh in on their experience using mobile learning apps as part of their instruction to date. So feel free to respond to that as soon as you can, and I'm sure the panelists will incorporate that into the presentation. So thank you, and again, let me know if there's anything that goes wrong.
Yeah, so this is Celia again. If you could kindly respond to this poll on the right side of your screen, I think it appears. We're interested and curious of how much have you used mobile learning apps as part of instruction to date, either personally or on behalf of your program or even state. I know we have participants at some different levels of involvement in adult education. this competition, of course, is all about mobile learning apps for low literate adults, in case you're wondering. Well. So do respond, and then Mike, and there's a little submit button there at the bottom. Click on that, and Mike will tell us what it looks like in terms of our collective background in this. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you that we will pause for questions and comments 3 times in the course of this webinar. So really to reinforce what Mike said, to use the chat box for that. So Mike will track the competition, the comments, and then we'll pause to chat. Mike, are the polls coming in?
Yes, ma'am. They're coming in rapidly, and
Okay.
it looks like most people are in the never to I've dabbled in it category.
Okay, then this is great. This is totally for you, this webinar and hopefully this team. So this is just to remind you to ask questions, since we're a big group, so we have to be muted. So, Adult Literacy XPrize Communities Competition, I'm going to say just a few words about this by way of background and context for you. And then we'll talk more specifically about Team World Ed. Now, XPrize itself is based in California, and they have been designing challenges, these competitions, to motivate teams or even individuals, if they want, to develop solutions to what they consider to be big human challenges, like dramatically increasing adult literacy in the United States. So this is the very first time they're doing an adult literacy competition. Mostly it's been things like this, like there are 7 active competitions right now. And for example, one of them is how to convert carbon dioxide into useful products. And that's the 20 million competition. You also see that they have a global learning challenge going on. And it is all privately funded. But never before has there been an adult literacy XPrize competition. And you too can be part of it if you want. So moving right along, it's funded by Barbara Bush Foundation, Literacy Foundation, and Dollar General Literacy Foundation. And really, so why an adult literacy app? Aren't we like doing just fine with what we got? Well, in the view of the foundation, anyway, XPrize, we're not fine the way we are, because in this country we have over 34 million adults who have fairly low literacy skills, and our publicly funded systems plus privately maybe accommodate 3% of those adults. And majority of adults these days own smartphones. So when this competition started in 2016, there were virtually no mobile learning apps for very low literate adults. And that's what prompted this whole adult literacy XPrize app development. So the first, there were 109 app developer teams from 15 countries that responded to this challenge. And they got kind of whittled down through a very rigorous judging and review process to 5 apps that were selected as finalists to complete this field test. And you see it refers to 2-stage competition. The first stage was a field test with about 5,000 low literacy adult learners. About half of them were native English speakers, and the other half were native Spanish-speaking English language learners who tested at below CASA score 210. If that says anything to you, it means really beginning level. This field test, stage 1, ended in October 2018. It lasted a year. And we are now at stage 2, which is the community's competition, and which is what brings us all to this webinar. Uh, so I am going, let's see here. So the winning apps will literally be announced a little bit later today in Miami as part of an event that Barbara Bush Foundation for Literacy is hosting. And shortly, we're going to view a video about the 5 finalists that was produced by XPrize. But now really it's time to get those apps to the people who could benefit from them, to whom they have been designed. So at this point, I'm going to open this up for some questions, comments, if you have them, and ask Mike to tell me if there are any. And just know that we're going to get to the apps. Okay, if you have questions about the apps, we'll cover that. But if there's anything else at this stage.
So far, I think you're crystal clear, and no one has any questions at the moment, but I will let you know.
Yeah, this is Jen. The only thing I'd like to add is that if you have questions for other participants who aren't the panelists, know that there are, Mike, how many people are on the call?
Currently, there are 82 people.
Right. So there you will have you'll be broadcasting to an audience of about 82 people. We don't have the list available to you all, but know that there is a big audience here for you to connect with. Thanks, Celia. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, this is where I turn this over to Jen, and Jen will tell you a little bit about who's Team World Ed. And I need to move this. I'll move this ball over to you.
So Team World Ed is a growing community of leaders so far from multiple states that are engaged currently with the Ed Tech Center and with World Ed. We have representation at the leadership level from the states of Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Texas, and Virginia. I'd like to note that there is an interesting crossover between these two groups in that several of these states are either in the IDEAL Consortium or they are also members of the New England Literacy Resource Center. In fact, the reason there is a World Ed team is that leaders from both of these groups across the country have came to us and said, we would really like to collaborate and work on a Team World Ed together. So what you have at the leadership level of this team are representatives who are deeply interested in supporting adult learners in the representative states and have the leadership and the network to help us make this project really fly. So Mike's going to chat the link, so check in the chat. We will also send the link out with the recording of the webinar so that you can watch it in your own time. It does a nice job explaining who we are and what we want to get out of the competition, which is, the way we want to support the learners that we all serve. So do take a look. So basically, if you are on the call from any of the states that have committed to participating in Team World as a prioritized initiative, you might recognize some of these names. And we're sharing this with you just so you get a sense of who you might contact if you are a teacher or a program director and you're in one of these states and you want to tap into the initiatives and the guidance and the leadership that will be provided for you within the states. Definitely reach out to these people. I'll just give you a little bit of a rundown on the types of things that these folks have said about their strategies. So in Connecticut, they've already connected with state directors and are going to be and have reached out to Connecticut TESOL and other professional organizations. Massachusetts, the outreach is to current participants and particularly at Jewish Vocational Services Career Centers, and then outreach to employer partnerships and leaders in the adult ed system. The state of New Hampshire is thinking about perhaps collaborating with DHS in that state. And in Rhode Island, we've got Carissa on the call. You could chat questions to her probably. We know that we have Carissa and Rhode Island thinking about reaching out to the Office of Innovation, K-12 and public housing, K-12 parent outreach, collaborating with the Office of Post-Secondary Ed to reach out into the community college system, reaching out, of course, through libraries and through the learning lounges that are located in libraries and CDOs, and then connecting with employers. Texas is going to be featuring this work at a number of PD events across the state, and we'll be partnering with Literacy Texas to reach students through their network of programs. And Virginia is getting the word out to program directors and practitioners via regular communication pieces and bi-monthly webinars. Also going to be bringing all of the app vendors to their summer conference in Virginia this summer, and we'll also be doing some webinars. I also want to mention that we have, of course, World Ed is a partner in this work, and we have colleagues from the Ed Tech Center and World Ed supporting it as well, including Priyanka Sharma, who many of you might know from her work with Learning Circles. So I'll pause here. I just want to make sure that I would see if you have any questions about the leadership and the priorities and the way people are thinking about reaching out to get this work rolling in the different states. Feel free to chat a question. So Mike, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm assuming we're good to go.
Y'all are just too crystal clear. You are good to go.
Okay. Okay, great. So please make Celia the presenter now, because we're passing it back to Celia, and I need your help with that.
It looks like Hillary Major is asking a question.
Oh.
I think people just need a few seconds to type it out.
Was there any shareable feedback from the field testing with learners? Celia, I'm going to ask you to answer that question. I think you've had your fingers in XPrize longer than I have. Was XPrize able to tell us anything about what happened in the field test with learners?
They will be. Yes, the field test was pretty rigorous, and as I said earlier, it was with 5,000 people. So those results will be shared by XPrize. All the students, those 5,000 students, were pre and post tested with CASAS. That was part of the guidelines for the competition for the app developers. So I am today, as I said earlier, the winners will be announced today, and tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. is when the press releases go out and it becomes public. It was going to be earlier, which is why we scheduled this webinar for today. We might have moved it to next week, actually, had we known, so we could share with you. What we can share with you, though, that 4 out of the 5 finalists will be part of the competition, and I will get to that in a minute. Just a little bit more background. What you see here on your screen right now is the competition timeline. And we are, of course, in February. We, Team World Ed, submitted our application on December 21st, which is when it was due. And at that point, it was really the state level partners and some community-based adult ed programs as well. But we didn't actively recruit programs across the 6 states at that point, which is what we're doing now. January through March is our planning period. This is where we are really building our team. We're getting ready at the program, state, and across state level, recruiting adults, making our plans for how to recruit adults and what we'll do. The milestone award winners, I'll say about that in a minute. You can see there's a March milestone, and that means that in March, XPrize will select up to 50 applications, meaning 50 teams, that will get a $10,000 phase 1 prize. and we'll find out whether Team World Ed, its application was made that cut. Nevertheless, that would not prevent us from participating in this competition. For the chat communities competition, the actual use of the apps will start April 1, where it says start of deployment phase, and it ends at the end of August 2019. The winners will be announced in September. So it's a fairly short time frame that we're talking about. So now on to the apps. We're going to show momentarily a YouTube overview. Hopefully it works better than the previous video. But if you want, you can also copy this URL or wait till you get the recording to see just a little overview of these 5 finalists. 4 of these 5 by tomorrow will be announced as eligible for this communities competition as apps that will be accessible for free through August 2020. And the app, you may wonder, well, how they're going to win. It will be on the basis of learning games based on pre and post tests using CASAS. And the baseline that was set was the average learning gain for a CASAS student at the beginning level in a course of a year. And that is 10 points. So that was kind of the minimum threshold that was set by XPrize, as that the apps needed to exceed that, or at least meet that in a year's time. And what happened there, to Hillary's question, we're going to find out. We can't share it just now. The threshold for ELL, English language learners, was set a little lower based on the baseline of CASAS experience with regular classroom learners. If you're familiar with this particular assessment tool, 7.6 score was the threshold. So the winning apps had to meet or exceed this in the post-test with adults. And the prizes go, there are 3 levels of prizes that are being awarded, I think, actually as we speak in Miami. 1 for Native English Speaker Achievement, Literacy Achievement Prize. Another one for Native Spanish Speaker ELL Achievement Prize. All the ELLs were Spanish speakers for the purposes of to make the data collection easier. And then there will be a $3 million grand prize. Once you join a team, there are 2 ways in which you'll be able to access these apps for free. One is that there will be a short URL that we will, the teams get and then send to their members, through which you go to Google Play. For this competition, the apps are only available on Android phones and tablets, unfortunately. Has to do with the way the apps were developed. And people will also be able to search for them directly on Google Play, which is the equivalent of App Store if you're an Apple iPhone user. So 2 ways, and if you join the team, we will then be communicating with you how and helping you access the apps and helping learners access the apps. So just a word about the prizes, because this is a competition after all, and there's money involved. So there's the 1 level is, again, developing the apps. But then for the communities competition also entails some prizes. And they're not quite as large as what goes to the app developers. But I just want to share with you that if World Ed's application, Team World Ed, is selected during phase 1, then we would get $10,000, and we will use that for developing marketing materials for you and to help coordinate. There's no other funding in any of these XPrize competitions. You do all the work up front without funding from XPrize. In a minute, I'm going to, of course, tell you how to join Team World Ed. So then there's this phase 2, a little bit bigger pot of money that goes to 3 teams. And Team World Ed is one team out of the 44 that are registered and competing. If they go through, there's no obligation, of course. Team could register and decide not to do it. But in that case, we will find a way to equitably divide these funds. It'll be about 300, it's to be determined how much it would be, across teams that recruit the most adults. All the prize money has to benefit adult learners. So you can't really take it and go on vacation or something. And at this stage, you can join an existing registered team, but you couldn't go off and form a new one because that deadline passed. So why bother? I mean, we are all really busy, that's for sure. So why bother participating? You got to this webinar, so you're interested. And here's what we think. I think this is really your chance to try out award-winning apps, most of which will not be free after this competition. And here's some reasons why we think it's worth considering. Certainly, this is an opportunity to really look at integrating mobile learning in your services and instruction. It's also a way of offering learning opportunities for students, friends, and families for summer learning if you slow down or close down for the summer. And if you have waiting lists like we do here in Massachusetts, it's an opportunity to help those folks to be learning with the computer that they have in their pocket, meaning their smartphone. And we are here to help you to do that. We at World Ed will extend ourselves to help you make good use of these apps. And really, we fully believe that mobile learning is here to stay. So judging from the poll that we did right at the beginning of this webinar, collectively, our experience is somewhat limited. So this is a good, supported opportunity to try it out because, believe me, mobile learning is here to stay. And this competition and these apps will probably catapult us and our adult education field into the mobile learning sphere even more than we realize at this moment. So moving right along, I want to tell you a little bit about what would it mean to join Team World Ed. And so it means 3 things. It means, first of all, of course, recruiting adults, not just learners, anyone who can benefit from using these apps, to try one of the approved competition apps. And we have short time frame, and it is a competition, so we are really asking our team members to think creatively, to reach out to old and new community partners, think about end of semester events. If you are closing shop for the summer, for example, and even if you are not, to really think about that as a time to distribute apps, to help people log in. Look for ways to piggyback onto existing events. One adult ed program that is using apps in California does onboarding parties with their students to create some buzz about it. And they're doing this to really good effect as far as results. Most adults are going to need some help to download these apps. And we are going to create some materials for that. There will be a code for each team, meaning Team World Ed will have one code. That's how XPrize will track whether how much usage we're getting out of these apps. So that will be really a unique code just for our team. And the goal is to encourage adults to use the app on at least 3 separate days. let's see, there's some, I'm just going to pause for one quick second. So there's some kind of recording that people are hearing, Mike. I see Jeanette saying I'm hearing both Celia and the recording. Can we turn off the recording? Can you please make sure that happens, Mike?
Yes, ma'am. I removed the multimedia player, so hopefully it'll be good now.
Sorry about that. Turns out running videos on these webinars is kind of complicated sometimes. So 3 separate days. So at this stage of this, in the communities competition, it's not about pre and post testing. It's about getting the apps to as many people as possible who can benefit from using them. So we're going to give you some support if you join us. And here's what we're prepared to provide for you. Promotional materials. We're working with a marketing firm called More Advertising rather, and creating customizable flyers that you can download and make your own. So you can, and there's one set of flyers that's really for adult learners, and another where you can recruit additional partners. We will also craft email messages to send to your partners. There will be a banner available for your website if you want to advertise that you're part of this innovative mobile learning venture with Team World Ed. We're also willing to craft Facebook messages for those of you who use Facebook groups for your program or individual classes. In addition, we're going to develop a print and a video, very short video guides for each of the 4 apps, because each program entity participating in Team World Ed will get to decide which of the 4 apps you use, or you can use all 4. It doesn't matter, they all go in on the same code. And of course, you get free access to the 4 apps. And it is Android phones only. Some of these are available through iOS, but not in this competition and not for free. We will also host monthly learning and sharing webinars. This is the initial kind of onboarding, and in fact, link to this webinar will be on our website. We're going to be developing some pages for the edtech.worlded.org, where you can view all the webinars as well as the links, much better than what we could view right now in this webinar, to the videos and lots of other resources. So we're creating one go-to place where you can download them if you're registered with Team World Ed. And more than anything, joining our teams, you would get some energy and synergy from working together on a really new, unprecedented project. So I'm going to turn this over to Jen to talk about how to join Team World Ed.
Great. Thank you, Celia. So I know there are some questions queued up. I will get to them right after I'm done talking here. So you, of course, have an ideal time to explore engaging in mobile learning with your classrooms and your programs with the support of the EdTech Center. So we would love for you to join us. Joining means registering. We'll be sending a link out along with the webinar recording. And when you join us, that means that you're making a commitment to promote the apps within your program, to recruit adults to try at least one of the apps, and to come up with a system where you can help people download the app with the Team World Ed code, which will be coming soon. And then encouraging adults to use the app on at least 3 separate days. So that's how we register persistence. It's downloading and then logging in on 3 separate days. So the competition is based on how many learners we can get who have our code to log it, to download the app and then use it on 3 separate days. I think the way to go about doing this is to think really broadly and creatively even at the recruitment end of this. We've been working with Ideal Consortium member states on ways to boost recruitment for distance learning. The ideas that have come from that research and that support across the U.S. are going to be things that are shared during these monthly support webinars that Celia mentioned. Things like printing out tray liners that get put in fast food restaurants or local restaurants. That's actually a really creative idea that came out of Northwest Michigan when one of the program directors that we work with wanted to boost distance learning at her site. So we've got lots of ideas to share with you. We encourage you to think broadly about ways to recruit your learners too, and to join us when you join the team, to join us on the monthly webinars to help with this work. We want to just note too that any of the materials that we developed are for use with learners who are using the World Ed Code. So by joining, you're agreeing to use it in support of the World Ed Code and by participating in the team. Okay, so let's pause for some questions. I'm noting that we still have an audio issue. Claudia Nunn is saying that she can hear some sort of conversation in the background. I can't hear it. And I'm not sure, Mike, if there's any troubleshooting you can do directly with Claudia. But in the meantime, I'm going to read some of the questions that I've seen posted. It says, if you have an Android, can you use them on a desktop or a laptop computer? Celia, can you answer that question?
Some of them can be used on computers, but not all. So tablets and smartphones, it is designed to be mobile learning, but some, for example, CellEd is available on computers as well. So you could pick an app that's available on computers, but generally tablets and smartphones.
And there was another question about, there are 4, right? And another question about whether or not they can use one or all. They can use all of the apps. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we don't get credit, so to speak, if they just download all the apps once. So I think, when I do professional development in support of improving distance learning programs, I encourage programs to focus on the one tool that best aligned with the needs of a particular learner, and that in itself supports persistence. So I would cast your nets carefully and get the learner the tool that's going to work for them if you are participating in matching learners and tools.
Well, they're all designed for low literacy learners, and the very winning app actually achieved learning gains for both ELLs and native English speakers at low literacy levels. And the students can be from any language group. I see a question here. Just because the app field testing was done with Spanish-speaking ELLs does not in any way prevent you or anyone from using it with people from other language backgrounds. In fact, it's being used with, I think, hundreds of thousands of adults and children already of many language background and low literacy English-speaking, native English-speaking adults. So there's no criteria. The XPrize, I see a question here, how will we distribute the participants and know that they meet the criteria? The criteria is that people download it and log into it on 3 separate days. And the assumption is that if you are not low literate adults, you're not going to bother going back and log in second time because it doesn't really meet your needs. So it's very low on criteria. Once you get the code and you go to the Google Play, or then any of us and all of us can and should, if we have Android tablets or phones, download the apps, and there will be, of course, there are demos already on the websites of most of these app developers, though not all, that you can view. And we're happy to send you URLs. If you want to go right away and see what Learning Upgrade looks like, just go to learningupgrade.org or celled.com. No, learningupgrade.com. They have demonstration versions on their websites.
So there are a few other questions. These apps will not be available on iPhones. Sorry, that's something that is we understand is going to be an issue for some learners. Susan asks, is this nationwide recruitment? And yes, it is. So if you are not from one of the 6 states, that's fine. You can register with Team World Ed. We shared that list with you just because we wanted to feature that there are initiatives in those states that will also be helping programs with this effort. And then another question: can students come from other classes or just under one teacher? They can. There is no. We can't. We're not going to dictate the structure of the outreach. It's just really, honestly, it's just getting learners to use this code when they download the app that will signal them as being part of Team World Ed.
Right, and they don't have to be learners. Absolutely not. This is definitely, we're encouraging all the members of our team to reach out through learners, if you're in an adult ed program, to their friends and family. This is anyone, not just one teacher, not just one program. Very much, we have team members who are reaching out to libraries, to any and all library patrons, people who come to libraries. They could be people in laundromats. They could be workers at a Workplace Ed site if you run Workplace Ed programs who are not enrolled in the classes you run, if you do, as we do. So it really, truly is for all low literate adults.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think, oh, sorry, Celia, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to say that it's really unfortunate that these apps are not available through iPhones in this competition. But I did earlier respond to someone, I'm not sure if that response went through, that some of these apps are available on iOS for a fee. So you can get Learning Upgrade or CellEd just by going directly to them. They're commercially available products now. So celled.com, learningupgrade.com, but in this competition, it's limited to Android phones.
Right. So moving on, here's a little highlight about the webinar that we are the first Learning and Sharing webinar will be on March 15th. During that webinar, we'll do an overview of the approved apps, and then we'll give you some tips for helping, just in general, how you can help adult learners download and use apps, and then some guidance for how you can integrate apps into instruction if you're thinking about a blended learning scenario. I just want to say that these are the webinars that we are offering to Team World Ed. So we would love for you to register for Team World Ed, and then we'll be able to send you a link to register for the webinars. So let's just take a temperature of the room here. Mike has pulled up a poll. Actually, Mike, could you pull up the next poll? This is the Where Do You Stand Now poll. And while he's doing that, I just would like to share with you the link to register for Team World Ed is actually on this slide down in the bottom right. It's a bit.ly, and it's team_WE, which stands for World Ed _XPrize. So you can use that link to register for our team. So where are you right now? If you could take a look at the panel on the right side of the screen, if you have polling not expanded, please expand it and you'll see the current poll. So where do you stand now regarding joining Team World Ed? Have you already signed up? All the way through, I've already signed up with another team, so not likely, you can't join us then, and everywhere in between. So please take a minute and let us know what you're thinking. This is to help us kind of understand how many, what kind of participation we can look for. And then please also make note of this URL that you can use to fill out the form to join the team. I just want to say, if you are from one of those states that has leadership, please do still register, because they'll be turning to us to see who participated in the webinar and who has an interest in joining Team World Ed. So they do need to know they do need to know from you through the form too. So do please register. Don't hold off just because you think somebody else is handling it for you. Okay, just a few more minutes for the poll.
Okay, and then I think we can move on to any more questions.
So we do have one. Wyvon asks about cost, and I assume she's talking about cost of some of the apps.
Yes, we don't know the cost for SALED or Learning Upgrade. I think, or Amrita Learning is a little bit harder to find the app actually, but I think that's a commercial venture as well out of India. And I wouldn't rule it out just because it's not developed here in the U.S. But I'm sorry, Wyvon, we don't know the cost. You'd have to connect with them directly if you want licenses for those apps.
Any other questions? Oh, they want to see the link again. Yeah, it's here. Actually, here it is, right here.
Yeah.
That's also on this slide.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this hour, this afternoon. I very much hope that you will also join our team and that you will consider come back to what will be an ongoing sharing forum starting next month, March 15th. We'll have practitioners talking about how they are already using these apps. And we'll also show some videos from the developers. And we will certainly share with you the big results tomorrow with the recording. We're going to wait to send the recording of this webinar out to you so that you can know which are the 4 apps that are eligible for this competition.
And Celia, we actually do have a couple more questions that have trickled in. Someone wants clarification. The only way to access the apps is to join a team, correct?
For free, correct.
Yes. And do users need to download the app by a certain date?
The apps will be available for downloading starting April 1 and then through August 31st of this year. And whoever downloads it can keep it for a whole year afterward for free.
That's right. And one other question, actually, I'm not quite sure I understand this question, but it's how do communities take part in the prize? Maybe whoever asked that question could email Celia and me, maybe Celia initially, and we can try to answer that or get clarification.
Well, I can say just a word about it in terms of how, if we were the ones to win the big prize, of one of the 3 teams that will win the big prize, our leadership team that we showed you earlier in the slide will work with us to decide how to do that equitably. It's all about volume. So we have entities participating in this competition that by themselves serve, say, 25,000 students, 30,000 students. So to be very honest with you, for us, the main motivation is not to win the grand prize. So, but if we were so lucky and we all work together and it happens, we will do our absolute best to figure out how to divide the money equitably based on who made the most effort and got the most downloads, most people to download the app.
Great, thanks, Celia.
That's probably it. So thank you so much for your time, for your interest, and I hope you join us. I should say one other thing, that you can't join two teams. So there, yeah. I'm sure you cannot join two teams. If you join two teams, you can only use one code to log in to get the apps. And I'm sure people on this call will know some of the other teams.
So we hope you choose ours.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll be in touch by email. Hope to see you online again. Maybe some of you in person. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.